Gentlemen, thanks for joining me, taking time out of the morning today at SRS.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Adam, it's always good to see you. You and I have been at these conversations for quite a few years now.
Yeah, it has been we've been working together for a while, and it's awesome to be at another one.
I remember my first visit was in your very first facility when I got introduced to it. The headset and the system, at least the console at that point in time, that was fascinating, continues to be fascinating. You've taken an interesting approach. You're solving it in a very unique way in regards to the actual robot itself and the capabilities of the robot from the construct.
Yeah, so the core idea behind what we're doing is to put all of the key robotic actuation inside of the abdominal cavity and inside of the patient through one small incision. And this is all based on our own invention of a specific type of decoupled cable-driven robotic actuator that removes the force buildup as you go joint by joint through the arm. And that lets us put all of this capability into the patient so that the surgeon no longer has to triangulate from multiple incisions to a single point in the abdomen, but instead is free to operate from within.
As a surgeon and as a power user of surgical robotics, if you will, what capabilities does that bring that might not exist in the market today?
I think the set of the system, when you think about, most of us are using multi-incision platform right now versus a single incision platform and it's only 1.8 centimeters. Going and setting it up without actually worrying about triangulating, something which takes an extra learning curve on traditional systems. So this is going to make the setup easier, especially for newer users as they go and enter the MIS field. And all the triangulation that Adam said is everything is inside. It's all set up for you.
You're solving some problems that have not been solved before in surgical robotics. There are some platforms you'll see here that are sort of, don't want to call them copies, but copies of other boom systems and other multiple arm systems. And that takes a lot of patience. And I've really admired Vicarious, and I don't mean patience, I-E-N-T-S, although it does. I mean patience, I-E-N-C-E. You're a publicly traded company, and the public markets generally don't have an understanding or the patience on a quarter by quarter basis, yet you're navigating that right now. What are those dynamics like as a leader and as you build the system of the future?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend like that's not a significant challenge for a number of reasons. A couple of years ago when a bunch of relatively early companies such as ourselves were going public and taking our companies public, it was a really positive thing. And we're in a pretty different market today, and that presents new challenges. I'll say though that fundamentally that what we're doing is so different from kind of the actuator level and offers so many additional advantages. I really believe in the core of our technology and what it'll offer to surgeons and in that their ability to better help their patients. I will also say that I do think that there is some value in some of the, call it copycat systems as well, right? There is one main competitor on the market today, and the ability to bring more systems and more platforms in, even if it's just targeted at lowering costs, will offer value to hospitals and surgeons. But from our approach, what we really think that the next really big opportunity is unlocking a lot of the future that comes with a differentiated approach.
Do you see, over the last few years, you and I have watched this closely, and you probably have as well, we're starting to see this stratification of patient selection, complexity, where maybe like a D5 really, from a cost perspective, makes sense at a higher acuity, but once you start to move down to that middle acuity, which is a larger patient population, that cost starts to become a wrestling match. And so are you positioning yourself to continue to do the high acuity, but also be able to drop down into that larger mid-acuity case and have that cost per procedure make more sense?
Yeah, it's a really important question. I'll say that we can flex up a fair amount with our system, although in its initial release there will be some limitations, like lack of stapling, for example, and lack of a third arm for retraction that really don't allow us to flex all the way up to the kind of most complex cases possible. You're right that there's a big middle ground, though, that's fairly unaddressed today, and the opportunity there is huge, and there's a couple different ways to target it. There have been a number of players targeting it through pure lower cost systems, and that is one play that can work. It's kind of by definition the lower financial value play. There are also, you can increase capability and either increase surgical throughput, make it more efficient and easier. You can decrease training and allow more surgeons to be able to play in that middle range. And you can, very relatedly, decrease complications. And we really believe our architecture has the potential to be able to do that via a number of ways. And there's obviously huge ethical and moral value to that, but also major financial value too. I don't know.
I mean, the point is really to increase access to surgeons to the robotic platforms, and providing a cheaper alternative for kind of more common cases. That does make sense.
Yeah, and I hate to use the word cheap with robotics. I use high value. So, so the centers of care, as we think about those, there's a big push that's going to happen towards ASCs. I think United Healthcare was talking about 52% of their lives are going to be insured through ASCs by 2032 is the number. That's a lot. And we're pushing there, and that's even more price sensitive, as well as the ability to handle more volume, which efficiencies matter there. The higher the volume, the more important efficiency is. So share with me what your platform does and addresses that in particular.
Yeah, so ASC setting is, like you mentioned, going to be incredibly important. It's a tough nut to crack, though. And financials are the biggest reason. There are a number of other things that we are working on that I think can help streamline this, bringing it from 3 carts to 2, removing, decreasing the overall footprint. All of this matters in the ASC setting, as well as offering a lower cost solution. I will say, though, again, value, efficiency, and throughput is going to be really king everywhere, and that's especially true in the ASC setting. So that's kind of the number one way in which we're focused on ASCs. But that all being said, that there's still a huge hospital opportunity, especially hospital outpatient setting. I think that's the easier thing to target for at least the next few years.
As a surgeon, and Adam, I'm going to want your response to this. As a surgeon, until today, there's been 2 cleared robots in the US, Senhance and obviously Intuitive. But as we see more complexity and the higher adoption rate and the higher procedure growth rate of the capability of surgical robots and soft tissue, do you see hospitals eventually having not just being an Intuitive hospital, but being known as a surgical robotic hospital that might have 3 or 4 different solutions within its 4 walls?
I mean, I think that's a clear possibility moving forward. We'll see how things play out in the future, especially here in the United States, where Intuitive really has been dominating until recently. So I think we gotta stay tuned. It's certainly kind of walking around here and seeing the variety of platforms. It's a very exciting time indeed, and we'll see what happens.
Do you see a solution set with multiple robots in hospitals?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is definitely a clear option. I think it really depends on a bunch of things, including the user interface and how translatable they are back and forth, right? Mm-hmm. It's like having, if we can use an analogy to a car, right? If
exactly.
all cars are fairly similar in how you drive them, it's not really that big a deal to move from one brand of car to another, even if you do have a clear preference. And you might not be deterred from taking another job just because that company has a different fleet of cars. That being said, that analogy only goes so far. It really is the core of what surgeons use. So surgeon preference is going to be a huge dominating factor in this as well.
I think the important factor is that as many robotic companies are putting their products out, is what is the learning curve, and especially for already existing robotic surgeons, how quickly can they go from one platform to another? And I think it's up to us to make this almost a car analogy where the controls are very similar. They may look different from outside, but once you get inside the car, they all drive about the same in the sense of how they are controlled.
Yeah.
And to touch on this just a little bit more, I think one of the big questions here is what are the driving factors that will get a hospital system and surgeons to adopt a new technology? And obviously I'm taking a series of bets around this, that it's not primarily cost. I think at least in the United States, it is going to be hard to convince surgeons to use a different system just because it's lower cost, especially when it's the kind of primary thing that they use for their work, and their work is so important. That being said, additional features and the ability to do things that they can't otherwise do may, for some cases, peel away those cases to a different robotic system and make it completely worth that switch.
And finally, you bring up the word cost. So we've watched in the period of the last 24 months, you've seen the obvious use of the word robotic placements, not sold, right? Because the model has now gone to not exclusively an acquisition, meaning of straight out purchase. We've got surgery as a service, right? However you want to call it, per click, a lease basis, which is really very sticky in nature and benefits the incumbent because the install base is there, the cash is there, but as organizations start to come into, especially this large format, $500,000, $1 million robot, we've got to have alternatives. And that is a new path to be navigated by a lot of these companies. How are you managing that as you move that business forward?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're having these discussions with each of our hospital partners. Frankly, each of them wants a slightly different business model and acquisition model, and that's something that we can be flexible on. Obviously, as a smaller player, we can only be flexible within some region, but there's a lot of financing instruments out there that are able to be used in order to help adapt one business model to another.
It just adds another complexity to the business model that didn't experience.
It certainly does. That being said, that it's something that's been done in high-cost medical devices for a long time.
Sure.
And hospitals are very familiar with already. So obviously it's important to us as a small business to be able to get that cash up front, especially when we have to put the cost for the production of our system, even with a relatively low cost of goods. But there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of room to be flexible, and our low cost of goods also further helps that for us.
As a surgeon, what surprised you most at SRS 2024 this year?
Oh, surprised. It's the surprise is how many different platforms there are now. Visiting, last time I was here actually was a few years ago. This is before pre-COVID time, and it was intuitive, and it is incredibly exciting and amazing that I was able to try some of the systems. How far along, how rapidly this market is growing. So the energy is palpable. The next thing is going to be, and everyone's talking about this behind the scenes, is AI. And how that's going to assist us. Because in reality right now, what we have is a leader-follower relationship between the surgeon and the robot. And the tools right now are only as good as the surgeon. The next step is going to be kind of getting that spectrum of the surgeons and the surgeons that are average and bad, let's call them bad outliers, and how do we help bring these people over? And I think the fusion of human-AI interaction, and it's going to be a slow process, but that is going to really, truly crystallize the improvements overall, and we're going to really see this technology move the needle forward. And that's the exciting part, but you need many more companies working kind of and competing with each other to really kind of rapidly see the progress. So it's exciting to see.
And I think when it comes to how we're approaching this, I mean, this is such a core philosophy to how we're building out our system, because at the end of the day, there really is nothing today in between a surgeon and the outcome for their patient. And this is a world where where it's difficult for me to rear end somebody with my car because it will stop me, and where airplanes are almost fully automated and hugely relieve the workload for the pilots so that they can focus on a variety of other things, including overall observation and ensuring safety of the aircraft rather than minute-by-minute flight and operation. And this has completely changed the paradigm. We're not there at all from a surgical perspective because we don't have the fundamental sensing and fundamental hardware in order to enable it today. So the ability to build that ground level, get the hardware that you can then build the sensing on top of to then be able to collect clinically relevant data and give insights to surgeons. This will be, I think, a huge revolution over the next 5, 10, 15 years in how surgery is performed, and frankly give surgeons the ability to perform procedures with a lot more comfort for themselves and better outcomes for their patients.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. The number of players, contestants, brilliant minds that are in this category have really forced an acceleration on it across the board. So I think it's healthy for all of us.
Yeah, it's incredible to see. I mean, the last, agreed, before
at
COVID
the end,
and now.
patients will benefit.
Yes.
At the end, patients will benefit. And that's the exciting part for us.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time. Adam, as always, I appreciate our conversation.
Same.
And I got a pair of the socks as a gift from, who the hell sent me the socks? Randy sent me the socks.
I love it.
Yeah, I got a pair of socks at home, and I think I got a workout shirt. So
I should start bringing them around. I
You
just feel
should.
a little weird handing people socks.
I don't know.
though.
If you're a
So-
roboticist or you're a nerd like I am, never too many robot socks. So, gentlemen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm Joe Mullings from the floor of SRS 2024. Be well.